Teemo has always been one of the most hated champions in League of Legends, but recently Riot have really made an effort to change that with all the new stupid champions they've added. Usually Teemo is a very immobile, bullying top laner that struggles constantly in bad matchups, but I have found a player who is the true definition of off-meta, playing an unpopular champion like Teemo in the jungle. This strategy sounds like he is griefing his games, but it's actually very planned out and useful. Teemo Jungle doesn't have to deal with the terrible parts of laning phase. Instead, he is able to invade enemies, stealth in their jungle, and start surprise bursting people down. This style is more like an Evelynn than a Teemo, and our player even has one special method of climbing that is incredibly rare in solo queue that could help you get a lot of extra LP. In game, you might be prepared for any situation, but out of game, are you still browsing the internet without any protection? Let me tell you about our sponsor for today's video, Atlas VPN. In League terms, Atlas is like playing a stealth champion. Enemies have no idea where you are, so you can make a play wherever you want. The enemies in game are companies like your ISP that want to sell your data, or streaming services that limit what you can watch depending on your location. Atlas VPN is a tool that encrypts your data and hides your virtual location. So let's say you want to watch something on Netflix and it isn't available in your country because of licensing issues. Like the John Wick series of films, I love them. They're not available here in the UK or on the US site, but if you swap to Canada real quick, there's the whole trilogy to watch. There are a ton of movies and TV shows like this. The Avengers, again, you can get in Canada. Brooklyn Nine-Nine, not available in the US, so use Atlas to swap. And you can also use it on Disney+, BBC iPlayer, Hulu, HBO, and Prime Video. I personally have been using Atlas VPN for a full month now on PC and also on mobile. They have that as well. It's great, the speed is great, I'd really recommend it. Currently, Atlas VPN is running a huge discount on their 3-year deal for just $1.39 per month, with a 30-day money-back guarantee. They say it won't last for long, and it's actually one of the cheapest I've ever seen for a VPN, so make sure you check it out by clicking my link in the description below. Our player today is named Manco. Back in 2013, Manco was a hardcore World of Warcraft player, really putting the hours in and grinding away with his friends. Swapping one addiction for another, he discovered League in Season 3, immediately playing over 500 normal games. But he was not done. Even that year, he played a few hundred ranked games, hitting Platinum 4 in his first ever season. I guess compared to these WoW players, we're all just casual gamers. Season 4, Manco stepped up his playstyle even more, rushing through all of the available champions until he stopped on one, Teemo. That's right, the guy who is even bigger than Tyler 1. If Tyler 1 is 6'5", Manco must be what, 7, 8 foot? He immediately fell in love with Teemo, and like I said, being the true definition of an off-meta player, he didn't want to play Teemo top lane, he didn't even want to play Teemo mid. He decided right away Teemo would move to his role, jungle. So even in Season 4, Manco started to develop this style. Season 4 jungle was completely dominated by on-hit junglers, so Teemo actually fit the meta perfectly, thanks to his love of attack speed and damage over time. This was the Feral Flare meta. This was a much loved item that was upgraded mostly by killing camps, making it level up and do bonus magic damage on each auto attack. With this style, Manco hit Diamond, and after some more practice with Feral Flare, kept climbing, already at Master tier this season. Manco could rely on being a power farming jungler, grabbing this item and staying away from danger, but in the next season this changed. By Season 5, Feral Flare had actually been removed, taking away Teemo's #1 item. In its place came the new jungle items. The one that stood out to Manco was Devourer, the enchantment that worked quite similarly to Feral Flare. You kill some camps, you get stacks, and you level it up into a new item. This item was called Stated Devourer, which made every 4th auto attack hit twice, applying on-hit effects multiple times. This, along with the addition of Skirmisher's Saber, gave Teemo a much easier time against high damage carries, which still remains relevant even to this season. Red Smite decreases the damage of an enemy champion by 20%, acting as a mini exhaust while also buffing your damage into true damage. Even in his games in Season 11, Manco is using this item to 1v1 Rivens. It is actually OP. Season 5, Manco peaked at 300 LP Master, but was not satisfied. In Season 6, again, Riot removed a vital part of jungle Teemo. The Devourer enchantment was gone. Even the on-hit Teemo build that Manco relied on to climb was now fully dead, never to return. This season started the race for the best Teemo player in North America, with multiple high elo players starting to pop up. iPav, Blotter, Hikashiken, an actual second Teemo jungle player in high elo. What is going on in North America? While these new players rose, Manco was forced to take a break to focus on his real job, so his Teemo started to fade away. 2 years later, Manco returned, logging back in. Season 8, he came back to something strange. His knowledge and skills had diminished over his break, and so he practically began again, from scratch, unranked. With all these items removed, he was unable to figure out the proper new build for Teemo Jungle, and instead gravitated to top lane, playing over 1,200 games. He was definitely dedicated. It was not until Season 9 that Manco actually started to have success. He started a YouTube channel and a Twitch stream, branding himself as a positive streamer. He created a new build, new runes, and began to really focus on the strengths of Teemo Jungle so he could use them to climb. Streaming every day with this positive attitude actually started to have results. His responsibility to his stream was to play well and to climb, so he did, right back to Master. Streaming every day, hitting Grandmaster for the first time, and then all of a sudden he was in Challenger. With an AP on-hit Teemo Jungle build and this responsibility to stay untilted, he was now a Challenger player. Now in Season 11, Manco has not stopped this playstyle and is more dedicated than ever. In the past 2 weeks he has played over 100 Teemo Jungle games, with a new build and an absolutely perfected style. So how does Teemo Jungle even work? This champion is literally played by about 10 high elo players globally, because of how limited he is. How can this possibly work in Challenger, even as a jungler? His plan starts at level 1, with a special Teemo only strategy for clearing. Between each camp, Manco is standing still for a few seconds, making sure he goes invisible with his passive stealth. This means that when you auto attack, you gain 5 seconds of buffed attack speed, which makes your clear so much easier and more healthy. Teemo Q is also very important for clearing. Kite the camp as far as you can, then use your blind and reset to the other side to kite again in the other direction. The blind means this camp will not do any damage to you as you pass by, letting you kite them again and taking no damage. He wards his opposite buff and then picks a jungle path. His most common path is a level 3 gank, so if top lane is in a gankable matchup, he'll do his 2 buffs and then the gromp and then he'll gank. Same thing if bot lane's gankable and you have a support who has lots of good CC, you do these 2 camps and gromp and then you gank bot lane. Do the exact same thing mid if it's a gankable matchup, 2 buffs and gromp, then go mid. It's important to look at all the champions in loading screen and figure out which one of these you want to do. For example, if your top laner is a Kayle, who's scaling, has no CC, and the enemy is a mobile champion like Riven, who can always dash away from your ganks, you're never going to gank that lane, so you would never path towards top. If no lane is gankable, then he does this full clear path, doing red to Krugs, to Raptors, to blue, to Gromp, and then Scuttle. This might surprise you, but from there, Manco's goal is to play like a high tempo Season 11 jungler. In Season 11, you're not allowed to just sit back and farm. You're forced to go for ganks, early kills, and early fights. These are the only ways to get a real lead. Teemo is not strong in the early game. He struggles in 1v1s, so he doesn't have the tools that a Xin Zhao or a Lee Sin have. Manco believes that to be an effective jungler, you need to be active early on, but it's very hard to learn how to do this with Teemo. If he makes a couple of mistakes, he's out of the game, whereas a champion like Xin Zhao, it's much harder to make mistakes, and then you can still be useful afterwards. But Teemo does have one thing that no other jungler really has: incredibly high ranged damage, even early on, when he's able to be hitting freely. Top lane Teemo is constantly contested, never able to do his full damage, always getting ganked, 1v2'd, and destroyed. Jungle Teemo, on the other hand, is free to create advantageous fights, like a 3 vs 2 in bot lane. There's no way for Teemo to get focused and die here, thanks to his blind. If the AD carry jumps on him, their auto attacks just won't even do any damage. So in almost every early gank, Teemo is free hitting enemies, doing maximum damage like a turret. Teemo is only bad when he is jumped on and bursted, but as a jungler, you're the one who chooses when to go in and burst enemies. Imagine if Xin Zhao was always in a 1 vs 2 getting ganked. He would look like a pretty bad top laner as well. Teemo is the exact same thing top lane, he's very easy to camp, but if you remove that, then he just has his incredibly high damage. When he has 800 gold, Manco's secret weapon kicks in, Futures Market. Manco uses this rune to propel him to a power spike, meaning that his weak early game is avoided as fast as possible. He then bases and buys 3 daggers, helping a ton with his early attack speed. 2 of these build into recurve bow, and 1 into berserker greaves. Attack speed is the only stat that matters early on with Teemo. Buying AP wouldn't increase his damage very much, but getting this much attack speed turns him into a real carry. Leaving his base, Manco is not pathing to go farm camps. He's pathing to get to his next gank, collecting at most 1 or 2 camps on the way to do it. This is not a farming meta, this is a meta where you need to keep a high tempo even on Teemo Jungle. So watch your lanes and see which enemy is killable. Ganking is now his #1 priority, and he has a special way of doing it. Teemo has no good CC to set up ganks, and no dashes to get in, so how can he even gank people? Manco doesn't gank like a normal jungler. Instead he looks for this play, sweeping for wards and moving in ready to stealth in the bush. He can now place down a mushroom and wait for enemies to walk up. It doesn't matter if the enemies then come up and ward the bush, he can move around freely invisible as long as he doesn't leave the bush. When enemies walk up to the wave, he goes in, simply auto attacking for as much damage as possible. He does not start his gank with his Q, he starts just with auto attacks to maximize damage. Use Q only when you need to, if enemies go in on you and you need to block damage, or at the end for extra burst to finish off the kill. Early game, your W is actually your best ability for making ganks work. Using it for the extra movement speed, literally no enemy in the game can outrun you, so Teemo can chase, continuing to auto attack. This is not a common thing to do on most champions, and feels very unnatural to see, as most champions would auto once and then be out of range, unable to keep going, so it's very unexpected expected to see it working, and enemies often don't even flash away, because no other champion can chase and keep auto-attacking at the same time. At level 6, Teemo gets his Musrooms, which you can start to use as an extra clearing tool for your jungle. Use them on camps with multiple monsters for AoE damage. You want to use them actively for camps and for fights, rather than placing them defensively like a Teemo top would. Next, just like any meta jungler, after ganking, Manco's second goal is getting dragons and Rift Heralds. He can solo dragon on Teemo at any point thanks to his burn damage on his E, which actually does extra damage to monsters. So at least Riot have kept that in the game for Manco. Rift Herald is a good goal before 14 minutes, dropping it when tower is on 2.5 plates to get full tower plate gold and first tower. Farming is the last thing he cares about doing, only using crabs and single camps to transition between ganks. Then in mid game, Manco's focus changes once again. He begins to invade the enemy jungle, looking for even more stealth picks. He sweeps and walks into the jungle, waiting for an enemy. Firstly, no one expects Teemo Jungle to work, let alone to invade your jungler, so enemies will just walk back to their lane or to their camps like normal. Teemo unstealths with the extra attack speed, autoing and using his Q to block damage or finish off the kill. This strategy works because you don't need to be in lane farming like a top lane Teemo. You can be patient and wait for these plays to work. If top lane Teemo did this, he would lose his tower, but there's no reason that jungle Teemo can't just camp in a funny spot and wait. This works especially well if you're tracking the enemy jungler to make sure they're going to run into you. At 20 minutes, Manco calls for his team to do Baron. Teemo melts the Baron even at 20 minutes. He does percentage HP damage, has a lot of attack speed, and has his damage over time. Manco says that in about 80% of his games he gets Baron around this time. Try and get a kill or catch the enemies out of position, then even just a couple of people including Teemo can do this Baron. Next, Manco's goal is grouping up with the strongest person on his team and looking for team fights. In team fights, Teemo is a hybrid champion. He's both an assassin and an AD carry, so he has two options. The aggressive style, where he plays like an assassin, running in or even flashing in onto the main carry to burst them down before they can contribute to the fight. You should do this style if you're ahead in the game with lots of damage ready, as well as when enemies don't have threats ready to kill you. Once you're in the fight, Teemo is surprisingly effective as an auto-attacking turret, so often you can still survive and get multiple kills. Your other option is the passive slow style, just like an AD carry. Similarly, your only goal is to stay alive and do as much damage as possible, so stay in the back line hitting your closest target. Manco says this one's much easier, better for beginners, so probably start with this. Your Musrooms in teamfights is one of the most effective ways of doing damage, thanks to their big AoE and burn. Setting up as early as you can for these fights will let you get shrooms in good spots. That means enemies cannot even walk in to take the fight. If you place them aggressively in choke points, enemies will just clear them with sweeper, so place them in areas that you can easily control, and capitalize if they explode. Like in a bush that you're camping in, let them walk in and one-shot them. Another strategy Manco uses is waiting for an enemy to use a stasis, like a Zhonya's, and then placing a mushroom on top of them, so that when the stasis ends, they're slowed, and they're dead no matter what. Manco is always preparing for these fights a minute ahead, figuring out if he needs to base early, kill another camp, or if he just needs to stay around and get ready for the fight. In the late game, the Dragon, the Baron, and team fights are the only things you need to focus on, so it gets a lot easier to be ready for these fights. You're not a split pusher with this build, so stay with your team. Manco's big secret to climbing is firstly muting his teammates. As Teemo Jungle, yes, you're going to get flamed every game no matter what. Turn your chat off and focus on what you need to do. Don't let the people who are supposed to be helping you win get in your head and distract you. But his main climbing strategy is positivity. Manco is one of the most special players you can watch playing League. This is not about being nice to toxic players, or trying to manage their emotions. This is about realizing that the game is never over. Pro players, when they play solo queue, are not flaming, AFKing games, or surrendering to get out. They know there is always a way back into the game. With Teemo Jungle, this is especially true, as he outscales almost every other jungler in damage, and has a stealth, which is one of the surprise mechanics that can help you get a free pick into a good team fight, and then win the game that way. Not to mention, in late game, the mushroom nukes he can leave around the map, which can stop enemies ending. If you learn one thing from Manco, go into your game looking for solutions, not for problems. Don't follow your losing teammates into a loss. Find your win condition and follow that. For his special build, Manco starts Red Smite and refillable. At 800 gold, he bases for 3 daggers or a recurve bow if possible, to set up his attack speed, buying Berserker Greaves first, which are very efficient on Teemo. His mythic is not actually his first item, preferring Nash's Tooth, the perfect item for attack speed and AP damage for Teemo. Riftmaker is his most common mythic right now, thanks to Teemo's E-Poison being so good for extending fights. The longer the fight, the better Riftmaker becomes, so damage over time like he has artificially extends the fight, even if Teemo isn't auto-attacking someone. After this, Teemo Jungle can build situational items. Morello if he's against healing that can win the game, Zhonya's if you really need it to survive, it's not great if you buy it just for damage, Void Staff if enemies have 2 or 3 champions with more than 50 magic resist, Demonic Embrace later for more burn, and finally Death Cap to buff up your AP. His jungle runes are also very important to the strategy. Press the attack keystone, showing his focus on the auto-attacking, and his very cool second secondary runes, futures market for early power spikes, and free boots, as Teemo doesn't need boots early game thanks to his W. Manco has a great YouTube and Twitch stream which are linked in the description, and thanks again to our sponsor Atlas VPN, also linked below. Please check them both out.